So maybe you can dive into, your house hacking course and then the value that you intend to provide people. Because I know personally, like I got a ton of value and I got it for free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's the best way to start in real estate for most people, simply because it's the lowest entry point, I think, cost-wise. A lot of people want to buy a house. And I think this way at least gives them the opportunity to add income streams when they buy their house. I think this method is going to be 10x more popular in the next 10 years.
In neighborhoods like Las Vegas, you just can't buy a duplex or a 4-unit,
right?
Because of the way, to be nice about it, of the areas that they're in.
Bad neighborhoods.
Yeah,
they're bad
all the 4 units in Vegas are like 1960s or 50s. They're just awful neighborhoods.
A lot of Section 8 housing.
Yes, which everything in Vegas could be Section 8.
Which is totally fine.
Yeah,
I want someone.
You just need to qualify for it.
Yep.
But I mean, with house hacking, you can actually get something that's a real house, not a 4-unit. You can house hack it for the whole entire time that you want to house hack it for. And then when it comes to the time where you want to live alone, you could just kick them out.
I see house hacking as a great way to start, simply because you can get in and reduce your biggest expense. A lot of people their biggest expense is living. It's almost universal. You're going to pay right now in Vegas. If you're living alone, you might be paying $1,500 if you add up utilities, internet, cost to move in. Sometimes there's security deposit where the landlord will take it from you and all this. Like, there's a lot of costs that go into renting. And so the way I see house hacking is if you can go from $1,500 a month living to zero, the theory of house hacking is you can buy a house and rent out the rooms to live for free. If you can diminish your living expense from $1,500 to zero, that's now money that you can start investing. And so my strategy is I'm not telling everyone they need to build some portfolio or they need to become some house hack king. Like my hope is that I can have a huge portfolio. Could
you take us through the numbers of one of your house hacks and
yeah, sure.
Probably how you bought it, the numbers of it, and just the way that's looked like?
Yeah, the infamous first one, the 7-bed, 5-bath.
Yes.
My friend Gary owned it. We did a lease purchase agreement. At the time, I wasn't capable of qualifying for his house. Bought it for $310,000. It was really $300,000. We bumped it up to $310,000 so I could get $10,000 cash back at closing.
$310,000 on seller finance.
On seller finance, yeah. So I did what's called a lease purchase agreement, where you lease the property and you have a purchase agreement at the end. We did that for 2 years. So a 2-year lease period where I collected the rents. I had control of the property. I was able to renovate it. And I also paid him his mortgage. I paid all of his expenses plus a $500 cash flow to him to carry the note. And so he made a nice little bit of money, but he also was able to find the buyer. He bought the house for $170,000, $175,000. I bought it for essentially $300,000. So he was able to lock in his profits from a property that was pretty unique. I mean, you guys probably all seen it.
It's a piece of garbage, to be honest.
It was. It's a little better now. It's certainly a lot better after my renovation.
How is it unique?
It's unique in that it is located on a 6-lane road, right on a 6-lane road. It's in a commercial area. There's a gas station essentially next door. So it's kind of a commercial space, but it's not really.
It feels like mixed use.
Yeah, exactly. It's a 7-bed, 5-bath with a converted garage.
And does that mean that it's got less attention when people are coming and going? Because I know I have a house hack and I have it in a very residential neighborhood, and I'm in a residential neighborhood where a lot of people own. And when people own, they've got pride of ownership. So they're kind of like, who's that walking down the street?
Why are all those cars down the street?
I've never seen that car before. So was that part of the...
That's a great question. I didn't think about that, but yeah, we don't experience that at all. Especially with 7 beds, you have theoretically 7 different tenants and cars. That might be an issue in a residential neighborhood.
But yeah, so when you're looking for that potential house hack, are you looking for something that may have extra foot traffic but not set off the alarm bells of, let's say, the neighbors?
Parking is probably the first thing I look for, because if you don't have parking, no matter how great the house is, you can't do it. And
100%.
so some complexes have gates where they might only have a certain amount of gate keys that are allowed to the owner. And so if you only get 3 gate keys and you have 5 tenants, like, it's just not going to work. You should probably avoid it.
And back to that one. So you said you bought it for $310,000 on seller finance.
Yep.
Could you tell us how much you rent the rooms for? Did you renovate it? Did you put...
Yeah. So I had $60,000 down. I sold a condo at the time, and the equity I had in the condo immediately went to Gary. And so $60,000 down on a $300 purchase, 20%. I think it was about $1,500 a month is what I was paying him. At the time, I can't remember what rents were, but they were somewhere mid to high 3s. I renovated the property since. Over time, I've put a lot of money into it. The garage is a great example. The garage was disgusting. It was already converted, but it was ugly old tile, dirty. The bathroom was disgusting. It was not a place I had no pride of owning it. So I put a lot of money in, probably $20,000 into the garage. I get $1,000 a month in rent just from the garage alone. I've actually decreased rent from $1,100. And so I used to get maybe $500, which I was lucky to get because I just thought it was a disgusting room. 500 to 1,000, that's an extra $6,000 a year on a $20,000 investment. Yeah.
So what I'm getting from you is that you can start a house hack with whatever you got. So let's say you have a house, but you don't have a ton of money. You could potentially, like, let's say, convert the garage and make a separate entry, or you could, make one room nice, make a little bit of money, and then take that money and make it even nicer so that you can bump those rents.
Yeah.
So you don't have to, shoot the moon on the first go, but your house can improve as you move along.
Yeah, and one of my old tenants was similar to you. He lived in an expensive part of Northern California, and he rented a 5-bedroom house and rented it to roommates. He rented the house, so he started house hacking without actually buying the property, and so his expenses went from $2,000 a month or whatever to zero. He did have to manage the property and make sure he was on the hook in case everyone stiffed him.
Correct.
So there's some risk there, but if you think if you have 6 months of everyone paying you, you should have enough saved up from the difference of what you were paying in rent to have in reserves.
So you're telling me that if I can't buy a house, I have no excuses. I can still house hack.
Yeah, that's actually, I need to create another module. I didn't even think about that for
because everybody is always talking barrier to entry. Oh,
Yeah.
I can't do this, I can't do that. And it's like, no, if you want to do it, you're going to do it. You'll
Yeah.
find a way to do it. And based off of your video, I was inspired and I was like, shoot, I could do this right now.
That's so funny to think about. Yeah, I'll have to add a module. I'll do it. But back to the point of starting, my intentions aren't to tell everyone to go get a 7-bed house like I did. If you want to go to the extreme, you can play that game and cash flow, and you can have all the headaches that I had, but you still get the benefit. For some people, I think you can just turn a 3-bed house, and you don't need to live for free, but you can follow my guidelines on what to look for in tenants and how to get your
3
criteria.
bed, have 2
3-bed,
roommates,
yeah.
rent it out for how much each?
Yeah, probably
600,
750 to 900 depending on the area.
You brought up a big thing, is learning how to pre-qualify tenants and or roommates. Maybe
Yes.
you can touch on that a little bit, because I know about my personal experience and I could tell you a lot of great stories, but I want to hear one of your stories.
Oh man, well we can start with the criteria. I think the important thing is being able to speak to a current employer. I like to see stable employment. If they are self-employed, at least some stability, and then also previous landlord. Who are you currently renting from, and can I please speak to them, and why are you moving out? That'll tell you a lot. That'll give you a huge picture. Stories. I've got stories for days. I've got fire in a house. I've got police showing up numerous times. I've had someone falling back into alcohol addiction.
So it's not all peaches
Someone
and
dying
creams.
in your property?
Yeah, I've had. I've already forgotten, but yeah,
had somebody-
someone didn't die in the property, but they were a current tenant.
Yeah.
they were in a health facility.
You had somebody die in your
Yeah, that
property?
was summer of 2020. The mom called me while I was at work. I like,
Oh
this
my goodness.
She's crying, and I'm just like, what? Hey, what's
Wow.
going on? Yes, so and so died.
So quick question. How are you dealing with tenants that work from home when you're dealing with the other tenants too, right? Like, is there any issues that you're seeing there?
No, thankfully. And I think the reason why is, I think the key here is you have to establish a culture. You need to think about what culture do you want. I am quiet. I don't want any noise. I don't want any problems. I don't want any drama. I make that very clear up front, and they know that before moving in. And I make it very clear. If you don't want to follow the rules, you're not going to want to live here. And so I think establishing a culture is important, because then people fit in. What I offer, and the reason why I offer rooms for probably less than what I theoretically could get, is when I want people to move in and never want to leave. Because when they move in and know that you offer the best option to them, they're going to follow your rules. And so when they know that if for $750 a month, you can live in a nice house, I have maid service come twice a month, I cover the utilities, high-speed internet, all the above, probably in a nicer house that they could rent on their own. And so they know that the alternative is way more expensive and way less lucrative for them. You're going to have more leverage. Hey, you're going to follow my rules if you live in a house.
I love that you do the maid service twice a month too.
That's key, by the way.
Roommates will blame others.
Yes.
Greg's so dirty, he doesn't clean his
Filthy.
dishes.
You know what's interesting? When you have a maid service, it's cleaner.
Yes.
Because you're creating a culture of cleanliness, and people don't want, it's unique. I don't know what the human psychology element to that is, but when you have a maid service, it's cleaner. But I do the maid service mostly to maintain the property and the bathrooms.
So here's the burning question. I know everybody watching is probably wondering the same thing. How do you deal with the fridge and the cupboard space, right? And people not eating other people's stuff? Because I've lived in situations like that, but thank God it's always been with friends. And so
You could always do a camera if it gets bad enough. You can say, all right, guys, I'm putting a camera in the kitchen, making it very clear this
Do you have
camera.
multiple fridges?
I always do, yeah. So I go maximum 3 people per fridge. So every new house I buy, I have a list. I have standard operating procedures, basically a go-to list of here's everything I need to buy, here's everything I need to do.
You have an SOP?
Yeah, so it's all
And
automated.
where can I find this SOP?
It's in my course.
The course.
For sure. Yeah,
In the course.
Yeah, but I give away all the my entire business, like all the spreadsheets, everything, all the assets. I go through all my contracts, everything.